Hello everyone, my name is Taha Abbasi, and today I want to welcome you to learn about the largest hack in not just the crypto industry, but across the financial sector itself. We've just experienced a few days ago a hack of $1.4 billion, which far surpasses anything we've seen to date. And this is of course the ByBit hack that we're talking about. We have a lot of information that has been revealed over the last couple of days from ByBit's founders. We've also received information from Safe, which was the actual platform involved in the compromise and hack, with both parties conducting independent internal and third-party investigations. And now we have some more details. So I wanted to kind of highlight what happened and also highlight if your funds are safe on ByBit. Also, I wanted to kind of give a little bit of information regarding the Safe platform, which is a multi-sig platform by Gnosis, and whether your funds are safe if you are utilizing the Gnosis Safe for multi-sig solutions, and also conclude with what can we learn from this specific hack. Could it have been avoided? What are some things that can be done to avoid situations like this in the future? So with that, if you are tuning in from X, if you're tuning in on YouTube, this is being broadcasted across both platforms. I do want to welcome you. Make sure to take a second to like this on YouTube so that the algorithm understands that this is something that could be helpful and beneficial for others. On X, if you're watching this, make sure to like and also repost. Bookmarking definitely adds a huge level of engagement and lets others know that this content can be helpful for folks. There's not a lot of information in crypto that actually dives into what happens with these hacks. A lot of it is kind of explained in a complicated way, and it frustrates me because it means that a lot of the audience in crypto doesn't get to understand how they can benefit from the learnings of these unfortunate incidents. So first thing we're going to do is kind of look at some of the recent statements that were released. So most recently we have a statement by Safe that was released. And why are we talking about Safe when this is a ByBit hack? Because when you look at the information provided by the ByBit founder, they had articulated that their funds were compromised while they were using this app platform called Safe, which is by the company Gnosis. So you can actually go and access this platform, or you can search for Gnosis Safe, and you will find that this is, if you haven't heard of this before, it's a multi-sig platform that allows you to essentially implement a multi-signature security process for your wallet. So if you have a MetaMask or a Phantom wallet or an Xsource wallet, depending on the ecosystem you're on, you just need to log into your wallet, and then you need to choose the transaction that you're choosing to conduct, whether it's a send transaction, a buy, sell, whatever, and then you hit confirm and it goes through. Well, with multi-sig platforms like this one, you're actually able to set up multiple signature requirements. So you may initiate a transaction, but it will require additional signatures for that transaction to go through. If you want to know how this works, let me know in the comments, and I can make a separate video about how you can use these multi-sig platforms in an effective manner, especially at companies. I've helped a lot of companies set up these multi-sig platforms as well, and we're happy to educate the audience about how to utilize it for their own purpose as well. So this is a multi-sig platform. So typically in a company, the finance person might initiate the request. Some other management folks might be in as a check and balance to also countersign it. And then there's a final execution of the transaction. So this is the platform that ByBit was using when they were conducting this transfer at the point that the hack occurred. So that's why we're looking at the statement from Safe. Now, Safe has provided a statement saying that the forensic findings of this hack confirm that this was a targeted hack on ByBit by the Lazarus Group. This is a group that is known to be state-sponsored hacking group from North Korea. They've done some hacks in the past. They've also articulated that the Safe smart contracts are unaffected, and then an attack was conducted by compromising a Safe wallet developer machine. This is an important thing that I want you to keep in mind, because I'm going to speak about this in a second here, which affected an account operated by ByBit. There was a developer machine, which is the Safe company's developer machine, the Gnosis Safe company's developer machine that works on the Safe wallet, that was affected. So it looks like it was a compromise of that developer. It was not a ByBit compromise. At least that's what I'm reading between the lines here, because they haven't provided a lot of clarity, obviously. Now, Safe Wallet has added security measures to eliminate the attack vector. This was a statement that they have a longer piece here that we can read through in a second, but the reactions have been very interesting, with CZ, who's the founder of Binance, also articulating the concerns that I have, that this statement is not clear enough. This update from Safe is not great. It's very vague. What does compromising a safe wallet developer machine mean? How did this hack? How did they hack this particular machine? Was it social engineering? Was it a virus? Like, what actually led to that developer's machine that works for Gnosis Safe, who has access to manipulate? Obviously, developers have access to push code into a staging environment, typically from where there needs to be checks and balances for that code to go to production. So what allowed this specific developer's machine to, one, be compromised? What was the mechanism that was used to compromise it? That has not been clarified. And then second, how come that compromise led to an issue in production that targeted ByBit, right? The second point kind of articulates what I just said is, how did the developer machine have access to an account operated by ByBit? Some code got deployed from this developer machine straight to prod. This is highly unlikely. In the typical software development cycle, you have an environment that developers use. This is considered the dev environment. In a proper software development lifecycle, you also will typically have a staging environment. So developers will first go ahead and conduct all of their development. This is the least secure environment. Typically, it's a playground for developers to experiment with features. Once those features have been built and experimented out and approved to go into production, they typically go to QA. There's some sort of UAT that conducts in this temporary QA UAT environment. And then once those pass, after they go back and forth between this environment and the dev environment. After that passes is when the changes are typically deployed into a staging environment. This is the last check before production. The staging environment typically has the last running production code, and it's the environment where changes are staged, as is the name for staging environment, before they can be pushed to production. And there are very limited people who are typically not the developers that are working on the features. These are production maintainers that have the permissions to push code from staging environments into prod. This is how it is supposed to be in large-scale enterprises that can affect billions of dollars, as is the case here. So the question that CZ is asking is a very good question, is how come, if it was a dev machine that was hacked, how come that developer had the permissions in the ecosystem at Gnosis to be able to take the code that is deployed in a dev environment in his machine to be able to push it to production that can affect ByBit at a production level? That is a very concerning situation, right? It's not great security practices, not great software development lifecycle that is set up to secure the interests of the users, right? So then the third point is, how did they fool ledger verification steps at multiple signers? Was it blind signing, or did the signers not verify properly? So this question that CZ is asking is more directed towards what Ben has mentioned from ByBit themselves. He said that he did not verify the address because it was an element of blind signing, because while on Gnosis Safe, you are able to look at the destination address. On the ledger device that he used to confirm, it was a big hash. Within the hash, the address information is there, but it is not as easily verifiable. That doesn't excuse the fact that it should have been verified, but that's part of the issue, is that because it was what's considered blind signing, so you had to understand how to break down the hash code to understand where the funds were going to. And then, so was 1.4 billion the largest address managed using Safe? How come they didn't target others? This is another valid question. And what other lessons can people learn? So this is why we're doing this stream, to highlight some of the lessons and to highlight some of what we have learned from Safe's specific statement as well. There are other statements that have come out as well, highlighting this, that the report by Ben Zhao, ByBit actually released a report, and they conducted, so Ben Zhao, for those of you that don't know, is the CEO of ByBit. He's also as stated on his profile, he's also the co-founder of ByBit. He is the person that conducted the last execution transaction to initiate that transfer. I believe it was of about 30,000 ETH, but which led to the wallet getting compromised, that Safe being compromised, and then leading to a much larger draining of their ETH cold wallet. They worked with a firm, Signia in this case, that conducted a third-party investigation, and they found something that the Safe statement did not reveal. So the conclusions from Signia found that they were able to look through the code history of the Safe web app, app.safe.global. And it says that the benign JavaScript file of app.safe.global appears to have been replaced with malicious code on February 19th at 15:29:25 UTC, specifically targeting Ethereum multi-sig cold wallet of ByBit, which is this wallet right here. That was a specific cold wallet that was targeted. The attack was designed to activate during the next ByBit transaction, which occurred 2 days after that, February 21st, 2025 at 14:13 UTC. So almost entirely 48 hours after that. So this is a very, very interesting revelation that has been found. They found this as a result of looking at Wayback Machine and the Wayback Archive. For those of you that may not be familiar, this Wayback Machine is a way to look at the historical references of a website. Just to give you an example of like what Google might have looked like back in 2003, right? So you can go back to history. It takes snapshots of different websites around the world. So this is what the Google page used to look like back in the day. This was the logo, this is what the details were, and it also loads up the JavaScript and the code that helps bring the website up, right? So this is the information, this is the site that they use to look up the details around what actually occurred around the time of the hack and the historical updates that occurred for the Safe website. And they found that there was malicious code that was injected. Then the question becomes, how was it injected? And this is where we can connect the Safe statements made by Gnosis Safe team, and then also the statements found by these investigators. So they say that based on the investigation, results from the machines of ByBit signers and the cached malicious JavaScript payload found on the Wayback Archive, we strongly conclude that AWS S3 or CloudFront account API key of save.global was likely leaked or compromised. Now, what does this mean? Let me kind of try to break this down. So AWS S3 is a storage platform. This is where you store data. So when you load up this site, there's a couple of things that happen, right? Like in order to load this site up, there's the code. So if you go to inspect and you take a look at, there's all this code that is being rendered. There are assets that are being rendered, right? Assets such as like, you can see the background images and all the detail that is coming through. All of this detail is being rendered from somewhere, right? So this has to be stored at some place so that the internet knows where to go find it and then to show it on your specific computer. So a lot of platforms use Amazon Web Services, AWS, for this kind of solution. And it looks like Safe uses that as well. And we can kind of confirm that briefly by doing a little bit of a search. So I'm going to say dig, Safe Global, and then let's kind of look at their NS record. So you can see, so what I did here is I looked for the I did a dig, which is how you can take a look at the zone records of a specific domain name, and I try to figure out what are its name servers. Name servers is another thing, we don't need to get into the detail, that tells us where this specific website's detail, where this specific app's details are stored. And we can see that they're using AWS servers. So this indicates that they are utilizing AWS services and likely using AWS storage service, which is AWS S3. And then the other thing they mentioned is AWS Content Delivery Service, which is known as CloudFront, which enables it so that that storage, instead of sitting in one server farm on the East Coast of the US or the West Coast of the US, it is distributed across the world. So if someone in Hong Kong, for example, wants to access the Safe website, they're able to access that near instantly because it's being served through a distributed network. The Hong Kong customers will receive that content from the Hong Kong servers. I'm simplifying the analogy. And the US West Coast customers will receive it from the US West Coast server farm, so on and so forth. And all of that is managed through a content delivery service like CloudFront. So these are the two services they're talking about. And they're saying that it is very likely that the API key for these two services was either leaked or compromised. Now, this is one of the most common ways that hacks in crypto occur, where developers who have been given access to a production environment, storage, or deployment service, in this case, AWS S3 or CloudFront, they have it in their machine, they commit something to their GitHub, and they accidentally leak a production API key or a production seed phrase of a wallet that might be managing something. So it's very, very risky. This is why in companies where I advise organizations how to set up their development environments, I highly encourage them to keep the developer keys entirely separate, to never intermingle the production keys with the development keys, so that you don't risk those production keys ever getting leaked. The production folks should never be involved in committing and developing anything to the ecosystem to avoid the compromising of those production keys that protect customer funds. So in this specific case, that's what they're concluding. And they're also concluding that they were able to find this detail through the Wayback Machine archive. What they're suggesting is that there's further investigation needed to provide some other concrete pieces of evidence that further give this foundation. But it is very, very likely that what they're explaining here is exactly how things went down. And this is another reason why the statement by Safe and also by this gentleman who's part of the Safe DAO is a little bit concerning because they're, at least in the highlights, are not clarifying exactly how this specific developer's machine was compromised, right? So in this case, where does the fault lie? Let's talk about that. Does the fault lie with Ben Zhao and the ByBit team, or does it lie primarily with the Safe team? Well, if you want to look at the exploit vector, then even as Safe has admitted themselves, the exploit vector came from the Gnosis Safe team. So the fault from the exploit vector standpoint lies with them. Why did this machine get hacked? In my opinion, they are at fault for that. They're not articulating what caused the hack. They're also not articulating what they did to fix the hack, right? So perhaps we can read the rest of the statement here. So let's take a look at this. Targeted, this is just BS kind of overview saying who hacked it. And then so forensic review of external securities did not indicate vulnerability save smart contracts or source code of the front end and services. So this sounds like a bunch of bullshit because while the smart contracts were not hacked, the front end was obviously attacked. And now, so they're not articulating how it was attacked. And this is concerning for me because I also utilize Safe for a lot of my business related activities. And this really does make me question that if a company is not coming out with transparency, I would much rather have them come out and say, this is what happened, and this is how we're fixing it. So let's take a look at what they say next. They say, following the recent incident, Safe team has conducted a thorough investigation and have now restored Safe Wallet on Ethereum mainnet with a phased rollout. Safe team has fully rebuilt and reconfigured all infrastructure and rotated all credentials, ensuring the attack vector is fully eliminated. So this part is very, very important. So specifically, notice their verbiage around and rotated all credentials, ensuring the attack vector is fully eliminated, right? This is really, really important. Now, why would you correlate these things together? Because obviously rotating credentials is a best practice, but this verbiage aligns with what we just saw by the independent investigation firm Signia, saying that this likely indicates that the API key for either AWS S3 or CloudFront was compromised. Now, the way you fix API key compromises is you rotate those keys. There's an option to regenerate an API key, which renders the previous one useless and then allows you to generate a new one. That's a security feature that's built into platforms to avoid situations like this. The fact that that is what they're saying here, that rotated all credentials, ensuring the attack vector is fully eliminated, further confirms that it was very likely the API key to one of those services that caused this issue. Now, because they're not providing this information transparently, they're leaving a lot of room for speculation, which I think hurts their brand and hurts trust in their product and services. So now what are they saying? Pending a final investigation, the Safe Wallet team will publish a full post-mortem. So this is something I am looking out for. Perhaps they'll watch the feedback by CZ, others, maybe this stream and many others, criticizing the lack of information, and maybe we will find more information in that post-mortem. So now they're saying the Safe front end remains fully operational, additional security measures in place. However, users need to exercise extreme caution and remain vigilant when signing transactions. Okay, that's fine, but the way that this attack vector was presented, it showed the correct address on the user interface to Ben Zhao and the rest of the signers. So they would have had no way of actually knowing if this was actually going to the correct place or not. This is a concern that they do need to resolve and articulate how they're resolving that. So Safe commits to lead an industry-wide initiative to increase verifiable transactions, which is an ecosystem-wide challenge. So this is where they're talking about blind signing, where a transaction can show something on the UI, but the actual hash of it that is indicating where the data is going, where the tokens are being transferred to, can be in a complex hash that is not as easy for the average user to understand. Even Ben Zhao articulated that when he was looking at this information on the Ledger device where he confirmed the transaction, it didn't show the address like simply easy to understand. It was a hashed address. So that hash data point includes typically the details of the transaction, the signers, the destination address, and much more. It's quite a bit of a long hash. So you have to dissect that hash and then find and verify if the address is accurate. It is obviously much harder for anyone that is not tech savvy or not into the weeds of smart contracts and how those hashes are compiled to be able to understand and verify that information. So verifiable transactions are going to be a big win, but this is not something that excuses the hack that occurred, because it was obviously quite concerning. Safe remains committed to security and transparency and self-custody, pushing the industry forward. This is the statement that came out from Safe. Not very detailed so far, but they have indicated that they will provide more details. My concern here remains that the number one exploit vector so far in some of the most recent hacks has been compromise of developer keys and developer wallets, compromise of founder and owner keys and owner wallets, or some sort of insider activity. And all of this really indicates to the level of infancy that the crypto security ecosystem is still in. And it further gets amplified when those folks that have knowledge of how these systems work try to explain it in a very complicated and complex manner, so the average person cannot understand, cannot be educated about it, cannot be informed about it, and continues to suffer the consequences of these hacks. So what can you do in order to make sure that your funds are safe, especially if you're utilizing the Gnosis Safe product? As of right now, I would recommend not moving your funds in and out of Gnosis Safe, because it looks like the vulnerability is not of the draining nature. This means that it does not seem to indicate that your safe smart contract funds are just going to get drained. So that's one thing that you can ensure, that for the time being, if you can manage it, try not to move the funds until there's a bit more information revealed, especially from the Gnosis Safe team indicating a full postmortem. So that's one thing. If, however, you are in a position where you cannot afford to keep the funds in Gnosis Safe, perhaps payroll is coming up towards the end of the month, you need to process those payroll payments, then you need to make sure that you are able to verify the transaction fully. There are plenty of blind signing verification tools. I'll also highlight how you can utilize some of these tools to verify through MetaMask, through Ledger, that the transaction you're signing is actually sending tokens to where you intend to and is actually doing what you intend to. So if it's a transfer, it should be conducting a transfer and not updating the logic of a smart contract or updating the logic of the cold wallet itself, right? So these are some of the things that you can do right now. Be careful, be vigilant, verify through blind signing tools, and then also ask a lot more questions. One practice that I always recommend, especially if you're new to trading or just building in the crypto space, is that have two separate set of wallets at the very least. One set of wallets which are for fund storage, whether you use Ledger or any kind of hardware wallet for this, or you simply use another wallet that does not interact with any kind of online DApp. So this is a wallet where you take all your profits out and you store your funds long term. The second wallet is the one that interacts with DApps, and you only move funds into that wallet that you need to interact at that specific time. So how would this work in practice? Let's say you're on the EVM side and you want to go and swap some tokens that you have. You want to sell them for ETH, or you want to use some ETH to buy some token that you're interested in, or you might want to stake or unstake, any of those examples. So if you have a larger amount of funds in a cold wallet that never interacts with any DApp, you simply use that wallet for transfer and transfer out. So you transfer tokens from that wallet, which has a separate seed phrase, separate private key, into the wallet that is considered to be your hot wallet. And then the hot wallet is the one that conducts the swaps and conducts the DeFi activities. And then when that DeFi activity is completed, you transfer tokens back to the cold wallet. That cold wallet should never, in no circumstance, should it connect to any DApp, any website, any tooling online. So this activity can enable a layer of safety, ensuring that the only time you will be at risk is if the wallet itself is compromised, which is likely to be a very, very small risk factor compared to all of the risk factors that come from situations like this, where the safe UI was compromised, and it wouldn't have been compromised, or the funds would not have been at risk if the cold wallet was not associated with it, right? So that's one thing that I do want to highlight that you can put into practice today. There's been a lot that's happened with this hack, with the previous hacks as well. I do feel that ByBit has done a tremendous job of being transparent, of providing a lot of information. They've also been able to secure funds to recover the ETH while they continue the investigation for the hack funds recovery. They facilitate withdrawals. So as far as your funds are on ByBit, they do seem to be safe. They don't seem to be at risk, and largely because of the funds and the treasury that ByBit has already built up to back up the customer assets. My concern right now remains with the Gnosis Safe platform. So my plea to Gnosis Safe, to your organization, as an avid user of Gnosis Safe and a big evangelist of multi-sig platforms, is to please provide some transparency. Please let us know exactly what occurred that led to the developer's machine getting hacked. Was it phishing? Was it some sort of a sophisticated attack that compromised the key? Because your sharing of this information not only is going to build trust, also going to allow other industry players to learn from what has occurred over here. It was clear that the developer's machine was hacked. It was also clear that the developer's machine was then allowed and enabled to be able to push something to production, which are key problems. And since we know that this is the case, instead of letting the world speculate on what's going on and perhaps leading to more nasty thoughts such as insider activity and whatnot, why not come out transparently and share exactly what occurred so that we can all learn from it and the industry can move forward and improve from that too. Just wanted to highlight some of the things that we've learned from the ByBit hack and summarize some ways that we can be safe from it. I have made a lot more content around utilizing different wallets that you can check out on my YouTube and on my X profile as well. And then I'll probably be doing some streams later today to talk about some of the other tokens that I'm looking at. This includes the Wine token, some of the updates that we've had recently after talking to the Wine app founder, Russ. I'm also going to be highlighting what's happening with the dog token on Bitcoin that has now transcended across different ecosystems, and then also giving a bit of a market update. Remember to like, repost this on X and bookmark it. It really helps with engagement. If you're watching on YouTube, take a second to like the stream too. It does help get the word out, and hopefully a lot more people can learn about how they can keep their funds safe on the Gnosis Safe platform and in crypto. Thanks again for joining. Take care.